We're live. Hello, welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am your host, Willie Bragg, and in solidarity, Pride Month, I decided to dedicate this month to everyone that I'm interviewing during the month of June, individuals from the LGBTQ community. And today, our guest is Tina Phillips, and I've known Tina, how long we've known each other? A little over about 23 years, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you feel old, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you looked you kept your age. I mean, you look exactly the same as you did when I first met you. Now I've gotten older, but
I was like 18 or so, maybe. Yeah, I joined the SP with year 2000.
Yeah. Well, you look about the same. You have not aged one bit.
I'm 42.
Yeah, you look the same. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
People say I have a baby face.
I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, you have a very youthful appearance. So, but Tina, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone here?
Okay, my name is Tina Phillips. I live in Oakland, California. I'm a social worker with a master's degree in social work. I work in the home health industry, so I'm a medical social worker. I visit patients and their families at home who are elderly, disabled, and help them with services and things like that, community resources, signing them up for programs that would be helpful to them. But a lot of my work is also social justice oriented, because I'm always trying to empower my patients and families and help them navigate the healthcare system, understand kind of what things are out there that they could take advantage of, because a lot of people don't have information about what could help them. So it's always like empowerment, education, informing people about their own healthcare and health decisions. So I love my job because of that.
Yes, and you definitely try to help people learning about things that they can qualify under in healthcare that they probably would not otherwise be aware of too, right?
It's like I run the gamut of letting them know about nonprofits, social services, some paid services, but if they're seniors, they qualify for certain things. If they're low income, they qualify for certain things. So a lot of people don't know that there's programs out there that can help you, basically.
Yeah, and I appreciate that that you do that, because there's probably one of my biggest issues, and we're both socialists, but one of my big issues to this day, and one area where I'm unyielding, is healthcare. I mean, healthcare is basically everything. You can't have healthcare for your population. I mean, you don't really have a proper functioning society, and I just don't understand how we could be in the 21st century here in America, be about 100 years behind many societies that said, healthcare for everybody is a good thing. So, it's one of my issues. But now, what I want to discuss is, your life. You say who you are, your activism, and and the situation in America with these culture wars, which kind of look like they were resolving itself a little bit for the better, but unfortunately, there seems to be a backlash back to the Reagan era when it comes to the intolerance against the LGBTQ community. So we like to touch upon that, and I'll let you take it away.
So yeah, I mean, part of what I also do is mental health care, and I always remind people your brain is part of your body. So, wellness is something that I'm interested in. Also, mental health is a special interest, and also, oppressed groups are something that I've studied throughout my education, of all kinds of intersectional oppressed groups, and one of them is the queer community, of course. But you have intersections of people of color, women, transgender people, non-binary people. So that's a lot of what's being targeted right now, is more the transgender, non-binary, non-conforming to gender type folks, because it makes our society anxious. Unfortunately, the brain kind of organizes things as a very simple information, and people want to just say you're a man or a woman, right? Our society is extremely binary. But people are not. People are complex, right? People have different sexualities, different genders, things are all mixed together. And so no two people are alike. And our society wants people to be more alike than they are. So it just makes it more simple information wise to be like, oh, I understand you're a man or a woman. Now I know the pronouns to call you, right? We can't assume pronouns. We have to ask, because everybody's different, and we can't know just based on how someone looks, how they identify, right? And in studying political science, I've understood this backlash thing, which is something that happens, throughout history. We make progress, right? And then there's a backlash to that progress, and we swing back to the other side. We see that very often with presidents, right? We've got a Democrat in office, and then a Republican comes in office, and the Democrat comes in office, and a Republican. We go swing back and forth, right? The society doesn't quite know where to place themselves. Part of the problem is generational, because you have the old generation who mostly white people, mostly more conservative people. I try not to be ageist, but you've got Gen Zers, and you've got like the baby boomers, and they seem to be at war with each other. The reality is we're at war with capitalists. We're at war with the rich. And yeah, the rich tend to be whiter, and there's a lot of straight heterosexual type, at least that's what we're told, is that that's the ideal in society, to be straight, white, rich, a man. That's the power in this society, because we live in a sexist, patriarchal, racist, homophobic, transphobic society. Unfortunately, like, we can have, all these great films, TV shows, celebrities who are LGBT, queer, and just celebrated. And at the same time, our society is regressive in some ways, and we can't forget about that. Just because people who are celebrities have money tend to be more accepted, but what about the marginalized folks? And so, the old guard is kind of dying out. I just feel like it's their last gasping breath to clutch onto power and say, hey, there's some people in society who are a little more weird. The word queer kind of denotes that, is that we're proud of being different, but other people are like, oh, different, that's weird. Like, if I don't understand it, I'm scared of it, right? So that's a lot of what's happening. And then also people are like, oh, they're going after our kids, right? That's always like the scare tactic. Or they're going after women, right? We've throughout history, marginalized groups we've been told that they are someone we should fear, right? African American men is one of the main ones that people think about when they think about a scary person. And now we're being told transgender people are scary people. One of the things that has been going on for a while is this whole bathroom thing of saying, like, if you're transgender, you can't use the bathroom that you prefer or that you feel the safest in, because we're afraid that that person's going to rape somebody or molest somebody. It doesn't actually make much sense. It doesn't happen that often, but they overblow it, right? Or they say like drag queens are promoting, being transgender and having these laws that protect children so that they can have hormone blockers, or they can choose the bathroom at their school that they want to use, And we're preventing kids from being able to do that. Like doesn't make sense. It's not good for mental health, because we've seen the research. When you don't support young people who are queer in affirming their gender identity and their sexual identity, they tend to do things like, suicides. So like their mental health goes down the drain. We're seeing depression, record levels of anxiety, all this stuff, right? It's like, what is this about? People blame all kinds of things. They blame the internet, they blame this or that, right? But the reality is, we've got to point the fingers at ourselves, right? As a society and our parents and policymakers, it's very important that we're supporting young people and not wanting them to turn to things like drugs and alcohol or violence or self-harm. So if we want our children to live and have happy lives, we have to accept them, right? However they come to us. And that includes young adults. And our society loves to discriminate and say, hey, we like the people who are like us, and the people that don't conform to how we are is some kind of out group. And psychologically, we always want to pit against each other, saying that, well, we're better than other people. You see that with religions. Some religious people think they're better than other people. You see that in all kinds of different things, So, if we say that straight's the ideal, or that if you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth is the ideal, that's trying to say you happen to be in that category just by luck. We're born the way we're born. We don't have a lot of choice in that. That's the other thing that people say, that we have a choice. Is it a choice to act on who we really are? I mean, we could oppress who we really are, but it's also not good for us psychologically. And I would argue it's not good for physical health as well. It stresses people out, right? It's stressful to be in a society that doesn't allow you to be yourself. So basically, as a queer woman who's also poor, who's also fat, who has a lot of pitfalls in this society that I just have to reject. What's the dominant paradigm of society? I don't ascribe to capitalism being a good idea. I also don't like homophobia, transphobia, fat phobia, sexism, patriarchy. I reject all of those things, even though they're very kind of like the dominant paradigm right now. So we just keep trying to push against it. But as we see through social movements, they take time, right? There's no overnight anything, unfortunately. And we have to keep pushing for progress, even if it's a struggle, right? Right now, we're in a struggle. Some of us literally for our own lives. I mean, you talked about healthcare. Healthcare should be a human right, because if you don't have healthcare, you could die. I mean, it's a life or death issue. And it can definitely bankrupt people, and people can not have access to basic care. And then whatever issue they have gets worse, right? We should have preventative care in this country that prevents people from getting so sick that they would die from something. But a lot of people are not protected, right? We just have a lot of our safety net. America has eroded to a large degree. When I visit my patients, especially because of the cost of living going up, they're barely surviving, if not surviving. I'm having to give a lot more basic resources now about food, how they can access cheaper prescription drugs, talking to much more people about low-income housing, because now people can't afford things because their rent went up, their gas went up, everything. Food costs are insane. They've like doubled or tripled what they were before for a lot of people. And it's not like our income doubled or tripled, right?
Exactly.
So people are barely surviving, and then you're going to throw in things like transphobia and homophobia and racism and sexism and just throw all that in. And don't give young people a reason to live. I mean, climate change already makes a lot of young people depressed. and anxious and very nihilistic and hopeless about the future. And then you're going to throw in wealth inequality and all these other isms on them. They're going to feel like, what is the point here, right? Because our young people are like more queer than any other generation has been. We could argue maybe it's because people were in the closet, who knows? But, you know, in terms of Gen Z, they're a lot more open, right? They're open to different things that other people were very closed about in the past. So, you know, whether it's, you know, an inborn thing or not, people are just at least more accepting of being themselves, which is a positive thing, right? But then we see this backlash, which is like they're passing laws that is going to constrict what we can do with our basic healthcare, right? So like gender affirming healthcare should be a right because it's also saving people's lives, right? People try to say, oh, that's cosmetic, right? No, that's not cosmetic because people who cannot get gender affirming healthcare tend to commit suicide. So it's just like the suicide rate among people who cannot live the life that they are meant to live from the inside out, whatever they decide about that, you know, whether that's hormones, whether that's surgeries, people do all kinds of different things. Every person is different who's transgender, non-binary, or whatever, queer. So whatever those things are that make them not have dysphoria and not feel like they can't have the outside of them match the inside of them, basically, you know, those people are more in danger. They're literally more in danger. So, and like when we're talking about children, you're preventing children from having these things. And the thing is of like hormone blockers, they allow a prepubescent child who has not reached maturity with hormones yet to suppress those hormones so that they can figure out what they want to do with their gender, right? So it's not actually giving them hormones to become more female or male or whatever it is, or more feminine or more masculine. It's actually just to stop them from going through puberty. It just delays puberty so that they can figure out what they want to do. Like a lot of people don't take hormones when they're, you know, young people. Like I think 16 is like the earliest most people get on actual hormones if they want to. But yeah, that it's making it so those children are not forced to go through something that's going to put them at a lot of dysphoria, like not feel like they're not themselves, right? We want people to feel themselves and love the person that they are inside and out. So if they feel like these things are happening in their bodies that make them feel like they're not themselves, it kind of makes them super depressed and anxious. And that's not healthy because kids will start self-harming. That's just the reality of that. So, I mean, these are facts. They can't argue these facts. Instead, they want to point fingers at things that aren't true, right? They just make up lies about these things to drive fear, right? It's a lot of fear-based BS. But like we were saying, like culture wars, they use these things as a distraction, right? They try to drive people to the polls and get them to vote for Republicans because they're concerned about these social issues, when really economics is what unites us. You know, it doesn't matter what is going on with you. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, most of us don't have money, right? When it comes down to it, we are less and less having money. The concentration of wealth is going up every single day. You know, our money is being taken from us and being given to the rich. We work very hard for our money, most people, and we don't get paid what we're worth. Our money is basically stolen from us, and people don't even realize that. They think that their wage is what they're worth. It's like, actually, like for me as a social worker, I get paid per client that I see. I make $110 every client that I see, every appointment. I know that my employer is making at least double that, right? Or more. And that's actually all my labor. All of it's my labor. But they're taking half of what I did. And for a lot of people, it's more than that. So literally, our wages are stolen from us. And that's just the way that is. And we should be trying to change that. But most people are just not aware of it. They think, well, this is just the way it is. They think that about everything in society. And they want you to think that, because then you're apathetic and you feel like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do to fight this. Might as well just accept it. They want people to feel that way so that they don't fight against the situation. But, the reality is we should, red state, blue state, everyone being on the different divide of all these issues, we could come together on economic issues. That's the reality of that, because we are more close to homelessness than we are close to being rich, right? Yeah. Think about it. Most Americans live paycheck to paycheck. If you lose your job, what happens, right? Mm-hmm. If your employment runs out and you can't get another job, what happens? What if you don't have savings and you have some emergency that's a lot of money, like a healthcare emergency, whatever it is? What do? Right? If you don't have family that can give you money, if you don't come from wealth, the social safety net's not that great, as I was saying. So there's only so much you can do about that. A lot of people, literally in Oakland right now, there are tent cities like Hoovervilles. Literally, you walk down or drive down the street, there's hundreds of tents all over the sidewalk, under overpasses, because people have been displaced from housing here. It's become so expensive. A one-bedroom apartment in Oakland is like $2,000 to $3,000 per month. And that's just the rent. We're not talking about utilities or anything else. Just the rent, $2,000 to $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. Are you freaking kidding me? People cannot afford that, and that's why they're ending up in tents. And when I drive by that, I'm just like flabbergasted. How in one of the most richest countries in the world, we have people living in tents? This is just disgusting. Like, it's gross, because we know that there's money in this country, right? There's no real excuse ethically that we have people living on the streets. Literally none, right? Yeah, literally housing right now that we could put those people in that is literally empty. It's empty, but somebody wants to make money off of it, right? Someone wants to rent out that housing or whatever. They want to lease out that housing. So they're just going to let it sit there while homeless people are out on the street in a tent, right? How is that comfortable? It's unconscionable. Like, that does not compute in my brain how that's even a thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm a socialist. You just summed up all the reasons why I became a socialist. So, so you're absolutely right and everything. So much to touch on and all. But the tent city, that is absolutely just that's just a crime. $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. Here in North Carolina, one-bedroom apartment a decade ago cost about $500 in the Raleigh area. Yeah. Now it's $800 or $900. So we're catching up. We're catching up.
Literally, I looked up what is the median income in the Bay Area. It's to basically survive, it's $60,000 a year. And I make about half that, right? I'm disabled. So I have rheumatoid arthritis and I have other kinds of chronic health conditions. So I work part-time. And I work myself as far as I can actually work. And I have a lot of fatigue and pain. So I need to pace myself with my work. And so I can't work a full-time job. But if I did, maybe I would make 60,000, right? But I don't. I make around 30, and it's not a lot of money. And I'm lucky that my family can give me some money. But, most people's family don't have money to give them, unless they live together. A lot of people be living with their families now. Multi-generational housing is becoming a big thing again, because young people can't afford their own housing and old people can't afford their own housing. So I visit a lot of families now where the grandchildren live with the parents who live with the grandparents. They all live together, because this is the only way you can survive nowadays. Other people are living with a bunch of roommates, right? Yeah, they can divide the rent.
That is a thing. When I was in college, a 2-bedroom apartment cost $400 a month, and it included cable. This is the 1990s. Included cable, washer and dryer. A 2-bedroom apartment, $400 a month. That was $200 a piece. and that was 30 years ago. And that town is actually about $700-800 a month, because is the cost of living is a little lower in that part of the state than it is in the Raleigh area where I'm at, where the cost of living is a little bit higher. So just depending on what part of the state you're in, where the cost of living takes place and all of that. But but when it comes to all this, I absolutely agree. The culture war, agree with you what you said, and this is what they do. You got those on the top, and they may disagree with each other on the culture war issue. They may disagree on abortion, and they may disagree on LGBTQ issues, and they may disagree on some of the other culture war issues, but they're united in the sense that they have the same donors. They're more united in letting those all Americans from all walks of life go and battle each other on the culture war issues, and they're laughing at all of us because we can't have nice things, because they're just they're letting Fox News and MSNBC and CNN dictate this culture war crap. Which I have a funny story about Fox News, but go ahead.
It's propaganda, right? I mean, Noam Chomsky, basically it's a manufacturing consent, right?
Exactly.
That's basically what it is. The news tells you what to think.
Yeah.
It's not the other way around. People are not taught critical thinking skills enough, and they don't have media literacy to be able to tell what's true and what's not true. And so they just believe whatever they hear or see. And that's very dangerous, because if you don't do your research, you don't know how to research and fact find and understand what you're actually viewing or reading, you're going to be duped. I mean, because let's face it, most of these media conglomerates are money funded, right? They're all in bed with each other. They're corporations. They're trying to make money, right? And it's the same pool of people who the politicians are in bed with, right? Everybody has their hands in the greedy pots of making money. And so what does the news like to do? They do the same thing the politicians do. They use fear, right? They use fear as a motivator. They also use fear to get viewers to keep watching. And why do they want to do that? Why do they want to dick people to the news? Because they have advertisers. And the more they can get you to watch those advertisers, the more money they're going to make. So it is all about money. It's not actually about informing the public. And a lot of these places do have agendas, right? They have agendas. They have political alliances and agendas, whether it's, MSNBC with the Democrats or Fox News with the Republicans, either political party. At this point, there's not huge differences, unfortunately. I mean, if you're talking about the radical right, there's a definitely difference. But, middle of the road, moderate Americans, they got a lot in common. Unfortunately, homophobia and transphobia are there. Yeah. Liberals try to say, oh, no, Democratic Party, we're so accepting. Really? Not all of them. I mean, look at the people who live in the Midwest. The people who live on the coasts, sure. The people who live in the Midwest, this is an issue. People who live in the South, we know, on average, they're more conservative, right? But we need to get the Midwest together. Because the Midwest is what is the issue at this point. Are we surprised that Texas and Florida are passing all these crazy laws around transgender people or whatever? No, we're not. When the freaking Midwest does it, then it's like, whoa. I mean, there was that book, What's the Matter with Kansas? I didn't read it.
Thomas Frank.
It kind of points to the same stuff that I'm talking about, which is like they drive the social wedges, the wedges used so that they can get people to the polls and voting for them, even though economically it's against their interest.
Exactly.
Their interest.
Exactly.
It drives you crazy. At the end of the day, here's my creed. It's called live and let live. Coexist, right? No two people are going to agree about anything, right? It's just the way it is, because no people are going to be the same. They're not going to agree about every little thing, right? So live your life the way you want, as long as you're not harming other people. live the way you want, right? You know, what is that? Live free or die. We have all these mottos, you know, that we're supposed to be living up to in America, where we're like, you know, be free to be who you are. Yet, you know, what is it? The First Amendment, right? The Bill of Rights. Our Constitution is founded on that we get to be ourselves and pursue happiness, whatever that means for us, right? It's there, right?
Yeah.
So it even says that we can overthrow our government, right? If they're not upholding what we want for our lives.
We're pacifists, so.
But at the end of the day, they're you know, they're the ones oppressing us.
Yes.
And so we got to figure out, like, what are we doing? Because we're letting them overrun us. And the reality is, I just think that, you know, we shouldn't be telling other people what to do. I'm a libertarian socialist. And I don't think we should be telling people that they can't be transgender, you know, or whatever. They can't be gender nonconforming. They can't be a drag queen in public. You know, as a young adult, they don't have the right to choose their own bathroom, or, you know, as an adult at a store or whatever, they don't get the right to choose their own bathroom. They get to go in the one that we think they should go into, right? That's about control. We don't need social control. We need people to be able to make decisions for their own lives, including young adults who maybe don't want to go through puberty. You know, why don't they have that right? Because there's a lot of oppression against children. You know, we act like children are owned, like they're our possessions. They are human beings. They have human rights. And one of those rights is what I'm talking about, the right to control your own healthcare. And nobody should be passing laws about that kind of stuff, including reproductive rights, because we know abortion rights are also under threat with Roe v. Wade being overturned. And one of the things I was thinking about is how young people have student debt, and that's about to come back, because they're saying that they're going to stop the non-payment. Like, basically, we have to start paying student loans again, or we're going to start incurring interest. That's the thing that keeps young people oppressed, right? They can't get good jobs. They're indebted because they went to college to try to get a good job, but now they can't get good jobs. But then they have all this debt. How do you pay back debt if you don't have a good job, a good paying job?
Yeah, that's true. One thing I would say, I wanted to touch on, I had a funny story, sort of a funny story about Fox News. I would say it's funny, but I'm also going to talk about the hypocrisy of Fox News, because right now Fox News they're claiming okay. Before I go into what's hypocritical and what's horrible about Fox News, we all know it's horrible. The funny part about Fox News is they have apparently, in spite of their public image, they have gone internally, organizationally woke. Apparently, they celebrate Pride Month inside the corporations, and they're telling people, so it's Pride Month within Fox News, which I find that really weird sometimes, because I still think of Fox News from that 2003 mindset when Bush and Cheney went into the Iraq War in that time period. That is what's fixated on my mind forever when I think of Fox News. For a few years, Fox News looked like it kind of moderated a little bit, but then they went back far to the right as far as their public image. And so they're telling you outward, broadcasting from the rooftops, how they're grooming children. And usually a lot of people on the right are the ones caught doing what they accuse liberals, lefties, what have you, of being done or whatever, and there is that. So I want to touch on that. One thing I also wanted to mention, you mentioned that you're a libertarian socialist, and that was one thing when we were working together in the SPUSA that we had some ideological differences, but you were one of the people I respected in the SPUSA when it came to these issues, because you were very much a strong, free-thinking type, and I appreciated that about you at the time and everything. So, and I have drawn more toward a libertarian left direction in the last few years, being let down by a Democratic Party that will not, and I'm talking about the people who are supposed to be our allies, the Squad, Bernie, all of these folks, claiming they were going to fight for us, and they hit a brick wall and they're not doing a damn thing. So your thoughts on Cornel West for president?
I really like Brother West. I've seen him speak at my university, and he is amazing as a speaker. Whatever love or not we have for Bernie Sanders, he doesn't have that kind of charisma that Cornel West has.
That is true.
He's a person of color. He can appeal to people who Bernie Sanders could not appeal to. So I think it's a good thing. I think he's running Green Party. Is that what
he was seeking the People's Party nomination, but and a lot of people say he left and parted away from the People's Party, when he's not. From what I can understand, he's just seeking the Green Party's nomination, but he's still accepting the Green Party's, the People's Party endorsement, which they're kind of dysfunctional. And both being members at SPUSA, we know what it's like to be in a dysfunctional third party. All third parties are dysfunctional, by the way. It's just in the nature of independent politics to be dysfunctional. So he's trying to tell all independent leftists, and anybody else for that matter, that he's campaigning on loving everybody, and it's a beautiful message. I'm sold. I'm totally behind Cornel West, 100%. People can do what they want. I'm not going to tell people they can't. You gotta vote. Yeah, they can do what they want, but I stand with Cornel West.
Yeah, this idea of loving everybody, I think it's a good message. It sounds hokey and corny and whatever, but at the end of the day, a lot of the reason why I left the SP is because there's a lot of demonization. And I would even go so far as to say dehumanization, particularly when we were talking about, a lot of this stuff that was coming up around Charlottesville, and like backlash to that, because there was, Antifa and stuff like that, where people were just like, we support violence. We support active violence, not self-defense, which I think is different. But, and I totally don't agree with that. I don't think that we should be going around punching people. That's not a way to actually work with people. And what I was saying earlier directly correlates to this, is that we can't divide this country into red and blue. We can't do that and say, oh, if you're a Republican, I hate you, I hope you die, because what's happening is we're marching towards some kind of civil war, is what's happening. Whether it's some kind of cold civil war or it becomes a hot civil war sometimes, we have these clashes. We see with George Floyd protests, it's just all kinds of, it's a lot of this stuff where it's like, okay, whether it's police brutality, whether it's, Confederate statues being taken down and the backlash to that, all this stuff, right? We saw Occupy. So all these things are modern movements, social movements, that have flashpoints, and we're saying like, okay, well, wealth inequality is something that we can all get on board with, because that's affecting most Americans. And of course, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, it affects people more than the people in those groups. And that's the thing that people don't seem to understand, is that we all have common interests in seeing people be able to be themselves, right? To be loved and accepted for who they are, and to reach their fullest potential in life, right? We have common interest in that because we're an interdependent society. And so the more we buy into this, false idea and myth that we are all independent from each other, we are all supposed to be self-sufficient from each other, this whole bootstrapism thing, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and like you're should be ashamed of yourself if you ever use government assistance. and that we all should be, in it for ourselves, which is this very individualistic kind of push in this society, is actually anti-human, because human groups throughout society, throughout the eons, have been interdependent. It's how we survive. Literally, biologically and socially, we are designed as human beings to rely on other people. And without other people who are in isolation, they tend to have shorter lifespans. They get depressed and they don't have good health outcomes, because we need people to survive. And like, literally, did you bake your own bread this morning? No, right? Did you make your own clothes? No. Did you make your own car? No. We rely on each other just to survive on our everyday basis. I just went to the store and bought bread and butter. Did I make those things? No. A worker made those things, right? And I'm a worker too. We're all working together to keep the society going. We're interdependent on each other. So to try to say that, oh, we're all individuals and we should just treat each other like we should only care about our own, right? That's ridiculous. We're an interdependent society and we should base our values on that, instead of this like divide and conquer thing where it's like we're all pitted against each other, we're all polarized. This is like a negative point of view. It can only send things in a negative direction. And so the more fighting that we're having, the less harmony we're having. Like, that's why the love message is a good message. It's like, love yourself, love others the way that you love yourself. I mean, it's the golden rule, right?
Right, exactly. Funny you mentioned about Antifa, because thing about it is, regarding Antifa, from day one, I agree with you. Smacking somebody beside the head because they're wearing a stupid red "Make America Great Again" hat. We can criticize somebody for voting for Trump. I mean, that's obviously not a smart thing to do, is to vote for Trump. But to smack somebody beside the head because they voted for Trump, I mean, that I definitely am opposed to that. But like you said, defending yourself, absolutely, you have a right to defend yourself. But I have a problem with the government trying to sit there saying, we got to go and declare Black Lives Matter and declare Antifa a terrorist organization. You can't declare something a terrorist organization that doesn't have an official membership, for starters. And with regard to Black Lives Matter and Antifa, there's no one tactic size fit all. You got those that have that revolutionary, tactic of, go and attack it at a source by literally attacking it, and not giving it, just, like you said, people who sat there and just, sucker punch someone, just for having a terrible opinion. Obviously you don't do that. I'm opposed to that. However, you got people who belong to Antifa or BLM, and they believe in, as a defensive measure, that's acceptable. There are people in both organizations who has an absolute pacifist positions. And, and when I hear politicians talking about wanting to ban organizations, I hate the Proud Boys. I don't think that, I'm opposed to legislation to ban them. I think that they should be lawfully prevented from attacking other people. But I mean, if they want to be assholes, they have a right to be an asshole, but they don't have a right to physically harm others. But I notice there's a double standard. These same people don't want to ban the Proud Boys or the Patriot Front and all that, but they want to go after Antifa. Which, one thing I love about Antifa, and you and I can relate to this about Antifa, those three arrows, those three arrows, that the YPSL symbol, the organization you were a member of and I was a member of, is the symbol for Antifa. Yeah.
Well, Antifa is more of an anarchist type orientated situation. But you're right, there's diverse opinions and actions within Antifa because they're not strictly organized. They're decentralized on purpose. They're not trying to get caught up in the law. They're kind of trying to operate outside the law. And to some degree, they were able to get away with that so far. But what I was going to say was, Yeah, definitely self-defense, but this whole offensive violence thing, they try to go with this deplatforming type situation where it's like they don't think people have the right to free speech, and they don't have a right to a platform. So if somebody's going up there and you think they're a racist or whatever, or they're pro-police or whatever, or you're automatically thinking, well, they're pro-genocide, so we need to harm them. We need to physically go up there and start beating them up to keep them from talking. Because if we don't keep them from talking, they're going to end up killing people eventually. And some people are actually wanting to kill them. So far, to go as far as to say we should kill people like that before they kill us. So that whole kill or be killed mentality is very toxic. Yeah. It's very toxic, and it goes right into what I was saying about civil war. Some people want a civil war in this country. They do.
Now, I don't want a civil war. The only war I support is class war. I mean class warfare. I do support emphatically. I'm for demonizing the wealthy in every way, shape, and form. I mean, obviously, I would not put them in quote unquote gulags or re-education camp. I'm not that kind of a socialist, but I certainly do believe in telling the truth about what horrible people the upper class, the ruling class of this country and pretty much all countries are, and just to go against these people. I'm actually a hell of a lot more radical now than I was 20 years ago. And some people say you mellow with age, you get more conservative as you get older. I'm actually, strangely enough, more revolutionary, and I never thought that was going to happen. But when you get your union job taken away from you, like I had mine taken away 5 years ago, and then you see in politics, you have a presidential candidate that you've seen twice stolen from you, and you see a Democratic Party that's you see a Republican Party that's embracing the Pinochet model, while the Democratic Party today is where Ronald Reagan was in 1980.
Exactly.
It's going to make you more radical.
Well, it should. I mean, if you see throughout time, you get pretty frustrated that things aren't actually getting better. In some ways, they're getting worse, right? And so that kind of backlash and stuff, it's taking a long time for the power to shift, right? We know in 2050, the country's racial dynamic is going to change. White people will become the minority in this country. Can we wait that long? Like, the problem is that's where climate change is going to start having huge effects. It's already starting with the fires and different things like that. But that's the problem, is that can we have progress before this country is in this nation, or this world is not going to be inhabitable? Because I want progress enough to stop climate change from getting that bad. And we need a more progressive government. So it's pretty scary, because I'm just like, when are these old white guys going to get thrown out of power, who are very conservative and they're actually making climate change worse, in their policies and who they support, and, basically the lobbyists and stuff like that. They're all in bed together, and they're actually killing us. I mean, climate change kills people, and it's going to continue to kill more and more people. We have to stop climate change. The only way to do that is to get more progressive people in government.
Outside of the party system too.
It's tough, because the money is what allows people to be elected right now. We need publicly funded elections, right? We need open debates. We need electoral reform in so many different ways. Things like instant runoff voting and proportional representation and all these things, right? We need those things in order to get more progressive people elected. It can't be the rich. You have to be rich in order to run, right? That can't be a thing. We have to make it more equal for people to be able to be elected. And I think that what were you talking about before we started talking about this? Oh, that you became more radical. Yeah, I mean, I think that unfortunately some people became too radical in the political party we were in, and that is why I jumped out. Because, like I said, you could go too far on the left and the right.
Yeah, I mean, I would still be in that party, not radical enough for them, but I'm, I would be where probably the average member was 20 years ago by today's standards, and that's basically what I would be.
Yeah.
My 2023 self will be arguing against my 2003 self today, trying to own my 2003. So, oh, you're wrong, 2003, Willie.
I mean, I do think we can learn a lot from Gen Z. I think we should take a lot from them. A lot of them are socialists, a lot more than any other recent generations we've seen. That they see how wealth inequality is impacting their lives, and that is something that drives them. They're also very socially progressive on average. And so it's, a lot of those types of people were the ones behind Bernie Sanders' campaign, or behind AOC. Young people are trying to get this country to go more progressive. It's just that they're still young. Not enough of them are voting, right? This country is not helping support young people to get them out there and getting into politics. So it's tough because old people reliably vote and young people don't reliably vote. And we need it to tip where the younger people, the more progressive people start voting more and start getting into elected office themselves and start changing the tide of where we're at. Because we have to not just say like, okay, gay marriage, we got gay marriage and that's good enough. We can't say that, right? We need a lot more, in terms of queer rights. Queer rights are under threat right now, right? And this is supposed to be the topic of what we're talking about. So I'm trying to wrap it back up. There's a lot more we need to do for people other than give them marriage rights. And it is very helpful to be able, as a queer person, to be able to get married. But there's so many other things, right?
Yeah. Actually, a couple little interesting things I found out. Last week, I interviewed a young lady named Angie Moon who lives in Ireland. She's a bisexual woman. She lives in Chicago. She now lives in Ireland. She, in fact, got her citizenship now with 5 hours time difference officially yesterday in Ireland. But anyway, we were talking about the plight of the LGBTQ in Germany during the war when the camps were liberated, and she told me something I never knew before about the camps when the Allies came in. The LGBTQ communities, that LGBTQ folks that were in the camps remained in the camps. I didn't think that they were going to be embraced. I didn't think they're going to that the Allies would be like, like with the other people who were in the camps, but a lot of them were kept in prison, and were treated as criminals in within both Germanys after World War II for many years, and by the 1960s. In the 1960s, believe it or not, East Germany actually was a little more progressive than West Germany on the issue of LGBTQ. They actually started to grant more rights in East Germany, which was for the Eastern Bloc countries. That was kind of forward thinking for them. So they were pretty early in the game. I would have thought that Germany, period, after the two Germanys consolidated in 1990, that they would have been ahead of the United States when it came to LGBTQ equality and marital equality. They didn't legalize it until 2017. United States beat Germany by 2 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
but it's good that a lot of countries have come somewhat further along on LGBT rights. One of the things I was thinking about just now is it's not just people who, harm themselves or, and their lives, there's also people being murdered. You know, a lot of transgender women are murdered in this country. I mean, that bottom line, we're talking about life and death here. Some of this stuff is life and death issues. It's not marriage or something like that. It's life and death issues, including healthcare. Because like I said, if you don't have gender affirming care, you're messing with a person's life. And that's just not right. We should be supporting people to make their own healthcare decisions and empowering them to do that, including young adults, like I said, or even teenagers or preteens. And it should be between them and their doctor, I would think. Just like we say, you know, abortion should be between a woman and her doctor, and or whoever's pregnant, because you know, trans men can get pregnant too. So it's something we should think about. You know, reproductive rights and queer issues, as I said, they're extremely intersectional. They affect, most of us now know a queer person, at least one person, personal, not just in the media. There's a lot of queer people in our families. So like these things impact all of us, whether we're personally that way or not. So we should care about people who are not exactly like us, right? Because as I was saying about being an interdependent society, we need each other. You know, we need each other. So we shouldn't just discard certain people or be like, they're not important. We're better than them. Whatever it is, these issues that we're having, where it's very tribalistic, where it's like we're the in group, we're a clique, and we're better than other people. Like whatever group is doing that, they're wrong. Because at the end of the day, we all have inherent equal worth and value.
Yeah.
Period.
Question. Everyday Socialism, the publication, online publication. Are you still the editor of it? Is it still a thing?
Well, it's not really going right now. For the past couple of years, I kind of switched over to using the Facebook group as a way to promote the ideas. And so I was doing a lot of memes, a lot of articles, a lot of videos for a couple of years. And I reached over 100,000 members in terms of people who liked that page. And I kind of burnt out on it. I was like, okay, I reached my goal. I got 100,000 likes. And I was able to promote a lot of like the issues that I care about in a few years through that Facebook page. But then I was just like, I think I want to focus more on myself. So, you know, as a disabled person, I had to really like focus on my work and economically surviving, because my wife and I broke up. Now I live alone. I have to survive, right? Most people, I had two incomes and now I have one income, and I'm working full time. So it's hard. And I have to do my own self-care, right? Like mental health can't just be an interest. You know, I have to take care of my own well-being and my own mental health. And I do still kind of run a mental health support group on Facebook for folks who are leftists. So I do still work on that kind of group. It's more like a support group. I share memes and stuff on that, but it's not as much work as, say, that page was, the Everyday Socialism page. And we're not printing articles anymore. It used to be a website where we would print articles from socialists, and I would edit them and I would write. The last time we really had publication was like 2020, right before, like right after the pandemic started was our last publication of that. So it's been a few years. And so, you know, in terms of my activism, a lot of my activism is online, because I can't do protests anymore. Like I can't do the marches. They're terrible on my feet. You know, I can't be on my feet for too long because of my rheumatoid arthritis. So I have written stuff about, you know, accessibility of leftist movements. You know, we say that we support disabled people, but, you know, the ableism is still there. You know, it's kind of like I was saying, you say you support transgender people, but are you backing that up? You know, we need to be allies to each other, and we need to show up for people, you know, even if we're not in that particular group, because it could be us, right? We could be the next target. We have to have each other's backs.
Yeah. Well, I sum it up pretty much this way, and I say this as an ally, that I'm a very simple person. It comes down to human rights, and human rights are human rights at the end of the day, and we're all equal. Every last human being on this planet. We're all equal as human beings, and nobody should be deprived of their human rights based on who we all are. And I just don't understand how people can't grasp. There are people out there that can't grasp that concept, you know. So
Well, as long as people think that they're better than other people, I mean, it's a power thing, right? Our society, it doesn't have equal power. And as long as people don't feel equal power, they want to try to get power over people in maladaptive ways. And that's part of the problem, is that we have a lot of trauma and abuse and discrimination, violence, because we don't have equal power in the society. If we did, and we had all of our basic needs met, we wouldn't be turning to these things, right? We wouldn't be turning to violence and abuse in order to get our needs met. We would have them met. And the reality is that we have enough money and resources in this world to keep everybody safe and not have people doing this to each other, this dog eat dog type of thing where they pit people against each other, right? The society doesn't have to run that way. And that's the thing, is like people like are brainwashed, right, to think that they can't change this system. But this system can be changed. It can be changed to a completely different system. It just probably will not be overnight, but that's why I say I have a lifelong commitment to social justice, because it's not going to be tomorrow that I'm going to see the progress of the work that I'm putting in. But I'm in it for a long haul, right? Because I want to see progress throughout time. I've studied social movements, and I've seen that it takes time for things to change. So we just put in the effort until it does change,
Yeah, and they're going to be roadblocks, and there are going to be occasional victories, and enjoy the victories when it happens, and we just need to fight harder for these justice issues as these challenges comes along and all of that. On Thursday, day after tomorrow at 11 a.m., I know you'll be at work at 11 a.m., Dwight Welch is going to be the next guest on this series I'm doing this month on Pride Month for the Willie Bragg Show. I just thought I'd let you know about that. So,
Yeah, another former SP member.
Yeah. So we have 3 SP members have interviewed, or he'll be the third one. I interviewed Catherine Ann McCloskey. She was the first one. You were the second one, and Dwight is going to be the third one.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to kind of wrap up by saying, like, compassion and empathy, right? These should be principles that kind of drive a lot of our behavior. It should be about compassion, kindness, and empathy, where we can have compassion for other people who are struggling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all have our own struggles, right? And nobody's perfect. And so we have to admit we all have flaws. We all need help. And we need community. We need each other, right? We can't live in isolation. I always tell people, think of the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. He was forced to live on a desert island for 3 years, and he had to use a soccer ball and draw a face on it and talk to it like it was a human being, just to psychologically, survive living on an island by himself. And the reality is, we should not do that. We have neighbors, we have families, we have coworkers, et cetera, et cetera. We need to rely on each other, right? Our social connections have whittled away, where we don't actually have community anymore. So as much as we can reclaim that, community is what we need to do. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're not, you cut us, you're not seeing blue and red. We're all red on the inside. I could try to say we're all socialists on the inside, right? Hey, the Republican Party's taken the red color, but
that's really weird about that. And I have a conspiracy theory about that. There was years ago when I used to watch the news reports back in the 70s. every other election cycle, the Democrats would be blue, the Republicans would be red, and then the Democrats would be red, and the Republicans would be blue, and they kind of alternated back and forth, back and forth. By the time Reagan came along, then they decided to make the Democrats blue and the Republicans red, and I know why they did that. They did that because it was Cold War related. They associated red with communism at their most petrified, or they associated red with the Labour Party in the UK or the Social Democrats in Germany, whereas the Tories in Britain and the Christian Democratic Union in Germany were always blue. And I think that's what it came down to. So they just did not want the Democrats to be associated with either communists from the Soviet Union or European Social Democrats. That's why they did it. So it shows you where the media, they're not as far left as the right wing claims that they are. That's just an example right there of where the media is at. So whenever people tell me about the liberal media, I want to tell these people to shut the hell up. There's no liberal media. I'm using the word liberal in the way it used to mean, maybe 45, 50 years ago, when I could claim that word a hell of a lot more than I could ever claim it today. I ain't no shut lib.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like libertarianism has been bastardized.
That's true.
A libertarian socialist, I'm more classical libertarian. I'm anti-authoritarian. So that goes along a lot of themes that I've been talking about, in terms of seeing each other as equals and like horizontal power, where we should all have equal power, not just be seen as equal as people, but equal power, so that we have equal agency, the right to liberty, which means the ability to make choices for ourselves and have freedom to do that, and self-determination. So, self-determination is actually in the code of ethics for social workers. So that's a core, value that we have as social workers, that everyone gets to determine for themselves what they're going to do with their own lives.
I have a funny story about libertarian socialists. I just thought about this. Have you ever heard of Michael Foot? Michael Foot this is long before Tony Blair became leader of the Labour Party in the UK. In 1983, he was the leader of the Labour Party, and this was when the Labour Party were still hard socialists, and this is the worst election result ever. The media in Britain, the press, call it the longest suicide note in history. The campaign manifesto was really socialist. They talked about renationalization of industry. They talk about Great Britain leaving NATO. It was a radical manifesto. I mean, it made Bernie Sanders look like makes Bernie Sanders look like Joe Manchin by comparison here, to Michael Foot. But he looked like if Bernie Sanders was 100 years old. Imagine, he was an old man. But they asked him in an interview what kind of a socialist he was on BBC. And this is the terms he used, the term libertarian socialist. I love how he answered it. They're like, so Mr. Foot, where is the mainstream of your socialism? You're not a communist. No, I've never been a communist. You're not a Christian socialist. No, I'm not a Christian socialist. You're not a Marxist. Well, I guess I'll be a Marxist more than anything else. But what is the mainstream of your socialism? Well, I suppose I'm a libertarian socialist because I believe that socialism is the way to provide the most freedom to the people. That was how he answered it. And I was just like, that was just awesome, the way he answered that and everything.
Noam Chomsky is also a libertarian socialist.
Yes, he is. He, as I said, he was sort of like Jeremy Corbyn, but before there was Jeremy Corbyn, referring to Michael Foot. And he was a good man, and vilified in his day and everything, but kind of well respected when he died in 2010. So that was the irony right there. You ever seen the show Spitting Image? British TV show. Um, they're not very. They weren't very nice when they made fun of him in a puppet form. So,
Boy.
yeah, they did like a grotesque puppet version of politicians in the UK, and they were pretty indiscriminate about how they made fun of everybody, from Margaret Thatcher to Queen Elizabeth to just about everybody in UK politics. I highly recommend it. You can see like full episodes on YouTube. So, and all that. I have to make another stream right now, but if you stick around for a moment, I do need to talk to you real quick. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to wrap this up real quick here. And make some announcements too. So hold on one moment here. Everyone, some announcements. Next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be on the JB Font Show next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am excited to mention that. And there is another announcement I was going to make. Yes, on Thursday the 29th, Jimi Sunderland and I will be co-hosting here on the Willie Bragg Show. So we'll be doing a show together. And just to let you know, we'll be doing our show on sharing our thoughts on politics and culture and the normal things we usually do when we co-host together. So I just thought I'd mention that as well. And if you all like what you heard, please press like and comment any ways you disagree. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Feel free to hit the subscribe and notification bell here on YouTube. Follow me on Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter, because I live on Twitter. And let's see, always reject corporate media. And until next time, folks, I will be doing another stream in a little while. I have to talk to Tina for a second. So until next time, you all have a great day. Later.